Apple, one of the most recognizable brands in recent history. For years, Apple's remained one of the largest tech giants in the world. It's a company known for revolutionizing the way we interact with the digital world. But with the recent iPhone ban in China, rumors abound. Is it really over for Apple? The company has a history of navigating through crises and becoming more resilient. Apple was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. But by the late 1990s, Apple was on the brink of bankruptcy. In its early years, Apple was a pioneer in the personal computer market and was responsible for many innovations in the industry.
We, of course, want to continue to sell more and more computers.
However, Apple would start to face increased competition from companies like IBM and Microsoft, and none of the three founders remained with the company. Apple's focus on high-end products and its refusal to license its software to other companies limited its ability to compete in the growing personal computer market. The company's situation seemed hopeless. Apple was forced to close several facilities and lay off thousands of employees. But in 1997, Steve Jobs returned to the company as CEO, bringing with him a new vision for Apple's future. Jobs realized that Apple's existing products were not competitive and that its business model was unsustainable. He set out to turn the company around, starting with the development of a new operating system, Mac OS X, and a new product lineup, including the iMac and the iPod. Despite these efforts, Apple's financial situation continued to deteriorate. The company was forced to consider a merger with another tech company. But Steve Jobs was determined to keep Apple independent. He turned to his board of directors for support. The board agreed to provide him with the resources he needed to turn the company around, and he immediately set to overhaul Apple's product lineup and business strategy. At the same time, Steve shifted the company's focus from hardware to software. He recognized the potential of developing new applications, like iTunes and the App Store, that would make it easier for consumers to access and use products. His efforts paid off, and by the early 2000s, Apple was back on its feet. With how quickly he turned the company around, it seems silly to think that there was ever a time when people supported Steve Jobs leaving the company in 1985. But there were a few factors that led him to leaving. When Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak first came up with Apple, they were young men without any real business experience. They needed expert guidance if they were going to get their company off the ground. So, they built a board full of business experts to help get the new tech company going. And as Apple began to churn out revolutionary computer products, Steve Jobs insisted that he wanted to be CEO. But the board did not think that this was the best decision for the company. Around the office, Jobs famously pushed people too hard and rubbed people the wrong way. In his mind, making everyone around him unhappy was worth it if it led to a successful business in the end. As a result, Apple's board believed that he wasn't ready for the CEO role. Instead, in 1983, Jobs recruited the CEO of PepsiCo, John Sculley, to work for Apple. Less than 2 years after Sculley was hired, their differences of opinion on how to run Apple came to a head. There was reportedly an argument held in front of the board of directors that led to Steve Jobs' exit from the company. John Sculley claims that Steve quit, but Steve claims that he was fired. Either way, the result was the same. Jobs was out, and the company was without the input of its only remaining founder. Steve then went on to found Next, a computer company that produced high-end computers. He sold the company to Apple for $429 million in 1996 and was made CEO of Apple in 1997. But that wasn't the end of the company's troubles. In August 2004, Jobs told Apple employees in an email that he had been diagnosed with a cancerous tumor in his pancreas and had undergone a successful operation to remove it. He had actually been diagnosed with cancer back in 2003, but Jobs chose to not reveal his diagnosis due to fear of spooking investors. But despite insisting that he would require no further treatment, Jobs began to make fewer and fewer public appearances. In the summer of 2006, Jobs appeared thin. Just as Steve predicted, investors began to worry. He made another public appearance in June 2008, again looking sickly at the annual Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. At this point, Jobs' health became a viral topic. The CEO brushed off journalists' questions and refused to answer any questions about his health. But behind the scenes, Steve continued to decline. He missed a notable Macworld event in 2009 and had to have his marketing chief deliver the keynote speech. Steve Jobs admitted that he had lost a lot of weight, but claimed that he had a hormone imbalance that was robbing him of the proteins that his body needed to be healthy. That same year, Jobs underwent a liver transplant in Tennessee. He officially stepped down as Apple CEO 2 years later on August 24, 2011, shortly after Apple became the most valuable company in America, briefly surpassing ExxonMobil. In a letter addressed to Apple's board and the Apple community, Jobs wrote, "I always said if there ever come a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know. Unfortunately, that day has come." Apple's chief operating officer at the time, Tim Cook, was immediately named CEO of the company. A statement was issued on behalf of the board, saying Steve's extraordinary vision and leadership saved Apple and guided it to its position as the world's most innovative and valuable tech company. They tried to assure investors that Tim Cook, who had been working for Apple for over a decade, had demonstrated remarkable talent and that the board had complete confidence that Cook was the right person to replace Jobs. But people were unsure. The last time that Steve Jobs wasn't steering the company, it had nearly gone bankrupt. Would Apple survive? Tim Cook had an uphill battle when it came to convincing investors that the company was healthy and growing, even with the backing of the board. Stock prices began to drop, and all eyes were on the new CEO to see if he would sink or swim. But by the end of his first year as CEO, Apple paid its first dividend to shareholders since 1995. Apple went on to claim the title of most valuable company in U.S. history on August 17, 2012. However, this didn't shield the company from controversy. There was growing criticism of employee condition at Chinese factories making Apple products, as well as the amount of waste that Apple's factories produce. Then, in April of 2021, iOS 14.5 was released. It included a controversial new feature, app tracking transparency. Before iOS 14.5, developers could use a host of tools to track user data from within an app. Advertisers could then use it in conjunction with similar data from around the rest of the web to identify information about a consumer in order to build an individualized profile. They would then use that profile to better target the consumer with advertisements and sell those advertisement opportunities to other companies and businesses. Users had always been able to opt out of this kind of ad tracking, but this update put the choice front and center. It forced app developers to give consumers a choice, and some developers did not like that. The largest pushback that Apple received came from Facebook. Facebook was outraged about the new update, stating that Apple's new system would make it harder and more expensive for ad networks to easily target customers, which in turn would hurt small businesses that rely on highly targeted ad campaigns. Facebook went so far as to take out full-page newspaper ads to try to convince customers that their right to privacy was a bad thing. They argued that Apple's changes could hurt websites that rely on lucrative targeted ads to make ends meet, forcing them to put up subscription services or paywalls for content that used to be free. But really, it was Facebook that stood to lose the most. Apple shareholders were nervous that the negative attention would drive down revenue, but partner companies and app developers eventually conceded and adapted to the change. Which brings us to 2023. In September of this year, Apple lost $200 billion in 2 days after China banned the use of iPhones for central government officials, citing a concern for privacy. This ban extended to state-backed firms and businesses, including energy giant PetroChina. Experts have estimated that there were more iPhone sales in China than in the United States last quarter. Tim Cook has tried to mend relations with the country, but it remains to be seen if that can be possible. With sinking demand in China and intensifying competition from rivals, can Apple be saved? That depends on what the company does next. The company has promised to completely overhaul its environmental impact. This announcement followed the law passed in the EU in 2022, requiring USB-C charging ports for all cell phones by the end of 2024. Apple claims it's gone a step further, and in addition to announcing that all new Apple products would be manufactured to use USB-C chargers, the company's also in the process of eliminating all plastic from their package by the end of 2024. Every Apple office, store, and data center now runs on wind and solar power, and by eliminating greenhouse gas emissions and focusing on clean energy, all Apple offices are carbon neutral. The company has stated an ultimate goal of permanently removing carbon from the atmosphere by continuing to invest in projects around the world and at home that protect the Earth's soil, plants, and trees. Tim Cook made a statement that by 2030, all Apple devices will have a net zero climate impact. If the company makes good on their promises and continues to invest in their relationship with customers, this will be yet another storm that Apple weathers. But if Apple bows to corporate greed and puts out cheap products to try and cash in a quick dollar, this may truly be the end of the tech giant. That's it for today. Comment down below about your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth you choose.